Welcome everybody. While people are signing in, we'll start the work session. The school district was getting a presentation for the budget. They've rescheduled that to May 7th. The West Jennings Sewer District extension, that is something it's an ongoing project with the town. The town attorney, we still have a couple steps to take that we don't have that information in front of us, so that won't be anything that we have to address tonight. We also have the moratorium process, which is the data center, which, looking at most people here, I'm assuming that's what that's about. And then our executive session will either be at the end of our work session or at the end of our regular board meeting. So, town attorney will be attending shortly. I'm sure he's on his way from the city, but to try to give everybody an idea on this proposed data center, I've just written some things down to maybe answer some people's questions or concerns. And then what I'm going to plan on doing in this work session is allowing people to come up and talk. And it's a comment. It's probably not going to be a back and forth. We will take your information. This is not a public hearing, but I want to explain to everybody how applications and processes work. So, because I'm sure a lot of people don't understand how this works at the level of the town and the planning board and what each board's responsibilities are. So, I just want to give some people background on that. So the online petition has been submitted to all the town board members. Everybody received it. I know there's over 1,500, people that have signed. I know there's paper petitions that are going to be brought forward. I had also sent an email back to the Citizens Against Lysander Data Center. That's what I have to call it because I don't have a spearhead of this. So that's what I'll address. I don't know who runs CALDC. I have no idea. It's a generic email address. It could be a cohort, a group of citizens. I don't know. So that's how I have to address it. What I want people to understand, same thing we've said to the newspaper. There is no active application in front of the town board. It is already zoned industrial. Has been for many years. They're a data center under that guise would fall into an industrial zone. So that means there's nothing for the town board to do in the town of Lysander. If they needed a zone change, they would come to the town board and request a zone change. So that being said, with it already being zoned industrial, if an application comes in, it will be addressed by the planning board. As we have said numerous times, there is no active application. Our planning board chairman, I conferred with him this morning. There's nothing in front of anybody right now. Now, here's the reality. We all know if we go and look at the property in question, it's being marketed as a data center, 300 megawatts. A property owner can list their property for whatever they want. Nothing has come to the town board, nothing has come to the planning board asking for that permission. Now, the other part that's known about this, there is already a site plan approval for a 360,000 square foot warehouse. That would not be the same use as a data center. So the planning board would have to walk through that process all over again. EAF, seeker, an application would be submitted to change or amend the site plan use. At last, in 21 or 22, when that was approved, the approval our planning board gave required a traffic light to be installed, and that's per New York State, off of Route 48 where it turns to one lane. If anything else changes there, it's all got to come back to the planning board. So the town board can welcome questions. We can sit here and try to decide what our path forward is. And I know that the online petition was asking for a moratorium. When the town attorney gets here, the board will probably have questions. of what our path forward would be with that. But I will just go through the other parts while we wait for the board to have questions. And if anybody wants to interject along, just let me know. What I'm gonna do is let the board speak. We're gonna go through our discussion. Then if there's any questions at the end, we'll be more than welcome to entertain people publicly. What we all know the environmental concerns. We don't need to get up and talk about the possible millions of gallons of water. We don't need to talk about the noise concerns. We all know that. We've all done our homework and read and addressed or looked at all of these items. Those are all foregone conclusions. We all know those are the same things that everybody is concerned with. So when you're gonna come up to the microphone, please have something that we might not be on our radar for possibilities. So it doesn't have, we don't need 600 people to walk up and say the same thing. You know, let's be productive about this. Everybody up here on the board, everybody who works for the town, we're all concerned with a project. We've seen this tackled in other towns. I know probably somebody's gonna come up and say, well, town of Skaneateles is doing a ban. Town of Dryden is doing a ban. They don't have anybody, to my knowledge, actively already pursuing an application or looking toward the possibility of a data center. So it's easy to do. A ban is only going to be upheld if someone challenges, or it'll be determined if it's upheld when someone challenges. Outright bans are difficult. Moratoriums, while easier, also come with their own set of issues on how they address things and what the time frame is for the boards to enact moratoriums and the applicants or people who own property to get in within a window. So the first part of the action, if an application were to come in, it would go to the planning board currently. As I said, the property owner would need to submit a brand new application to the planning board for any change outside of the original site plan approval. The planning board would go back through the EF seeker process. Planning board, as I talked to the planning board chairman this morning, he's been aware of it. They're all gonna start looking into data centers and the possibilities and issues and everything that could occur with them. So, now we're getting to, the online petition, the ask of the moratorium to let the town create a code. Well, a moratorium, and this is entertained by the entire board. We sit here at the end of tonight, if the town board wants to take the steps forward to a moratorium, we will follow through that process. What I want to explain to people is that is a process. There are steps in a moratorium. So the first step would be the town board would create the resolution to create the local law. Then we'd have to come back in 2 weeks or at the next meeting, and there's publishing guidelines on how many days that has to be out to the public for public hearings. We would also have to send that to our town planning board for a referral. We'd also send it to county planning for a referral. We'd have to wait to get those back. Before we could have the public hearing, we wouldn't make a decision until we had that information back from those respective boards. Then the town board would end up voting whether they create the moratorium or they don't move to create the moratorium. Moratoriums in New York State, sorry, doing a lot of talking. Moratoriums in New York State must meet a specific criteria. And there's roughly 5 guidelines. Reasonable time frame is measured by the action to be accomplished during the term. A valid public purpose justifying the moratorium or other interim enactment. Address a situation where the burden imposed by a moratorium is being shared substantially by the public at large. And strictly adhere to the procedure for adoption laid down by the enabling acts. And have a certain time, or a time certain, when the moratorium will expire. So there's 5 guidelines that if we enact a moratorium, that we would have to uphold to New York State if it was challenged in court. So proposing a moratorium and acting on it are two very different things. So I want people to understand, that's why I've said to, numerous online or media agencies, a moratorium is one process in a toolbox. If an application were to come across the planning board, the planning board has a multitude of processes that have to play out before something is adopted or approved. An application comes in for whatever somebody proposes for their property. First, if it's zoning, if it's not zoned correctly, it's either a zoning variance or it's, going back to the town board for a zone change. Then the application goes back. We don't have that part with the data center, it'd be under industrial. Then it would go back in front of the planning board, and the planning board would play that process out. And if the planning board feels they need somebody to give them a study on this or that or something else, that process would play out at the planning board level if an application was even brought to the board. So please remember the process. That's we, as a town board, set the codes and the laws. The planning board takes those codes and laws when someone wants to develop a property and uses them to their ability to decide what fits the community. Does it achieve what our comprehensive plan states? Does it achieve what, we think would fit in the community? They also get a referral from county planning for that project. So there is a multitude of processes that an application walks through to achieve anything. And just because you ask for something, it's like your parents. And I got one of them here tonight. And I asked for a lot as a kid and I didn't always get it. Looking back, you probably weren't wrong. But just because you ask doesn't mean you get it. And then there's the opportunity for the developer to move forward on a path if they didn't like what they asked or if they didn't like what they received. Then there's the public opportunity to not like a decision. So there are a multitude of processes that play out for something to be addressed. Sorry, the screen's dying out on me if I keep them up. Maybe they'll come back. So the timeline at the best case scenario for a moratorium would probably be a 4 to 6 week window. New York State. I know I've seen the Senate bill passed around, S9144 started in 25, finally got legs in the state Senate on a moratorium on data centers. It's still currently sitting in the Senate. Now, what's happened at our level, towns levels in, New York. Town of Dryden enacted a ban back in February, banned data centers. I don't know if the town of Dryden had one person even actively pursuing an idea of a data center, but they banned it. That can hold, any law can hold until someone challenges it. The town of Lansing, where I think a company called Terra Wolf is looking to build a 400 megawatt data center, they wrestled with this for 8 months. They started the moratorium process, got involved. Last December, they decided to pull the moratorium from being acted on. When you create moratoriums, there's a takings clause in the moratoriums where if the possible project can prove that they had lost out, the town could be liable for damages if it was proved it was an unjust moratorium and that value was lost. And then you would seek retribution against the people who created the moratorium. I am not sitting here telling you that I am afraid of that. What I'm telling you is there are legal steps that each group, whether it's the town, whether it's the citizens, or whether it's the developer or property owner, can take to address a concern or something they want to do. I want everybody to understand how this process works and what's available to both sides, because this is not a one-sided thing. So what can the public do? Stay informed. Right now, this is the process. People can call, email, stop in and see me. I can tell you where we're at. You can stop and, email the planning board. Is there an active application? Absolutely, absolutely. We're here every day, 9 to 4:30. We welcome the opportunity to give you an explanation. What I really want people is to understand the process. As much as a data center is not you with your home, if you want to build a pool, you have the same process. If you want your pool to be closer to your property line than, that is allowed, or build a fence that is going to infringe on easement, you have a path. It's not just a solid no. When I came on this board, I have always been taught in my life here, you respect the rights of a property owner. And as I'm town supervisor, I have to respect the rights of the citizens, and I have to respect the rights of a property owner that might not live here. And to me, it doesn't matter if you live here or not. You're a property owner, you have rights. So we all have to remember that everybody has an opportunity to bring whatever to anyone. And then it's up to whatever board it is to weigh it out, see the legal part, see the environmental part, see the community part, and see where we end up. Here's the other ask. At the last meeting, we've got a comprehensive land use plan that is now a couple of years into being redone in 2023, and we have a lot of things to address. You can come forward, shoot me an email, make a phone call to my office. We're looking for people to assist us with making our codes and making our plans better. Usually we're dragging people onto these boards, and right now I look at a petition of over 1,600 people, and I'm hoping I get 100 people that want to help make the town of Lysander better. If I get 5, I'll be disappointed. We also have codes updates that we want to work on. We know with Micron coming, the players are going to get bigger. They're not going to be local developers. These are going to be games in politics that are larger than us and a lot larger than this town and what we can carry. We'll need the citizens to help us. And this is being a productive and a positive part of growing this. This isn't you throw your hands up in the air. We all don't win. Sometimes we go after something, we don't achieve it. I lost this job more than I wanted. So for people on social media to be threatening me with a vote or not voting for me again, that's okay. I'll welcome the person who wins to show them what I've done for the last 3 years and the next year and a half. That's not a problem with me. So, let's be civil about it. We're all neighbors at the end of the day. And federal politics have tore us apart. Don't let something tear the community apart. Let us try to make it better. We all know things come along and go, oh, we never wish we had that. I regret a lot of things we've done and things that I've done in the past. What I try to do is fix them and make them better for the next person. That's what we should be trying to attain here. No one up here is trying to, get some money on a back-end deal, hoping that this occurs. We're all trying to do what we think is best. These codes and laws and rules have been created over 60 or 70 years, and they're living. We can adjust them. We might not be able to stop everything that walks in front of us. I can sit here and tell you that my personal feeling with Micron 7 miles away in the town of Clay, I don't think the town of Clay had a real lot of opportunity of saying what's going on over there. County bought 1,500 acres of property and pretty much laid out to the town of Clay what's going to occur. This isn't the situation here, but we all have to remember where this board and where we are at in the food chain of how development works. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying we have to live with what those decisions are. And from the article back in November, our county executive thinks it would be a very unique thing to have. That he has his right to understand or have an expectation of what his vision is for Onondaga County. He doesn't have to worry about just the town of Lysander and the town of Clay. But I can tell you in my 50 years and a week of being on this earth, The town of Lysander's changed tremendously since I grew up as a little kid on Coppermill Road. You know, Church Road, I could ride my bike at 6. Maybe my parents made questionable decisions about letting me ride my bike on Church Road, but I lived. And Church Road, I don't think I'd trust a kid to ride a bike on it now. But that's where we're living. So we can't go back to the first person in Lysander and go, sorry, I'm shutting the doors. We have to address what we can address at the time it comes up and try to make it better and try to work toward what would be a reasonable or a happy medium, or maybe it's nothing. But that's a process that has to play out. So we got the codes update, we got the club committee. The last thing, reach out to your other elected officials. Reach out to your county legislatures, not just one, not just Brian May. Reach out to all. Reach out to the county chairwoman. Reach out to the county executive. Reach out to our state and federal officials. Reach out to Congressman Manning. Reach out to our state senators. Reach out to our state officials. Rachel May, John Lamondes. There's a lot of different letters after those names. And last I checked, it's an even year. People are running for office. So, you know, bring these concerns to them, because I can sit here and tell you data centers are a heavy lift for a town. We have limited resources to battle something that large that is dealing with entities, as you've seen in New York State. ORES is overseeing large format solar or wind power. ORES is gonna, probably oversee battery storage over a certain megawatt. I can see something happening where the state says, oh, we need data centers, and it pulls it out of the town purview. I mean, that's a possibility. That's how everything else has been scaled. If it's over this amount, it's gonna be a state decision or an independent body decision that doesn't have to listen to us. So, what we can work on what might happen, but we can't necessarily stop it. But we can try to do everything we can to make it better for all of us that are gonna have to live with whatever occurs there. And it could be nothing. I mean, we don't know a lot right now. There's an application into the NYISO. I have asked National Grid to, give me their engineers and sit down and explain a data center process with me, because I don't understand them. But as I said at the last meeting, if we're using Facebook or we're using Amazon or you're using Siri or you're using, AI, you're using data centers. Everything cloud-based is going somewhere. So it's got to live somewhere. Cloud-based just means it's living somewhere. So we have to understand that we might have something that we use and we're not against. That's a tough pull. People have to understand we might be able to, put some regulations and rules on it, but at the end of the day, we might not stop the whole thing. Maybe we will. We could be successful. I've seen things get fought and won. I'm just one guy up here, and the board has their own opinions, and everybody out there has their own opinions, and we're more than happy to hear them. But I just wanted people to get where the process is and to understand where your energy could be directed to assist with that. So before we go to talk to the town attorney, or does any other board members have anything else they would like to say?
Covered it very well.
Sure.
I do have questions when we get to the attorney.
Okay, so what, it's 5 to 6 here. I think what the board's probably gonna ask, and we can go by board member of the town attorney, we're probably gonna talk about options of moratoriums and try to weigh what a decision is. So Ed, you can start.
Sure. So, as I understand it, as Kevin mentioned, there's 5 things you need for a successful moratorium. The reasonable time frame, I think we can cover that. a valid public purpose. I think everyone knows that. We've got the issues with power and water and sewage and thermal discharge and pollution. So I think we can make that case pretty well. The burden, I think I have some questions on that. What would be considered a sharing of the burden? In my mind, it's we're only putting a moratorium in place, so the burden is really you just have to wait a little while for us to get the rules in place. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
You're correct.
Adherence to procedures we can do, and an expiration date on the moratorium. It makes perfect sense. I'm sure it would be tied to that timeline up front.
Yes, and the moratorium, just so everyone's aware, typically the blanket amount, the max is 6 months, but we've never asked for anything less. And we often renew those quite a bit after we've enacted them, as long as there's not any resistance.
So speaking of moratoriums for 6 months, we have an active moratorium right now for battery storage systems.
We do.
I believe, and we have to see what they come up with, but I believe a modern large-scale data center like that requires a battery system.
That I do not know off the top of my head. It's a little bit more technical than my knowledge of.
Assuming they do, and I have a technical background, so I believe they do, just because they need uptime as their selling point. Right? So if they lose power, they can't go down. Generators take too long to start up. And at the size they're talking about, a UPS system isn't going to be adequate for it. So I think they need battery storage. And if that's the case, why wouldn't our existing battery storage moratorium stop there or act as a moratorium for data centers?
I suppose it could, but I imagine it would probably be just the same with the data centers. If somebody wants data center in the moratorium on the batteries, what's resisting it, they're probably going to say that that's an action by the board to prevent data centers in a COVID is what the argument would be legally.
Okay, even though the moratorium was in place before the data center was ever proposed?
Well, that comes to the big issue. So if somebody was to submit an application before a moratorium went, there's a lot of issues regarding review of time and review of factors. That would be an issue of law or an issue of fact that we would have to determine. I'm not equipped to make a determination about the battery storage centers with the data storage centers because I truly do not understand.
Okay. And if for some reason we determine that, their application doesn't include a battery storage system, really to kind of circumvent that, and then they came back 6 months from now, a year from now, so we really like battery storage. Is that a different project? Does that kind of restart the clock on what rules they would have to apply for the data center?
Maybe. It's something that we'd have to review. Right now, they're not tangentially linked in any way, so they would be separate issues.
Well,
I'm not prepared to answer the question regarding the battery centers. I'm sorry.
I think
I'm happy to reach out to you after today after I've had a chance to research it.
and then the other thing is, I see a ton. I went out to the Association of Towns. I got a ton of towns that have enacted moratoriums for data centers. I got some on battery storage systems as well, and even some on crypto mining, because I thought that was very similar. They all seem to kind of meet this criteria we talked about before. They don't seem particularly worried about an application coming in before it's several of them just say, hey, if the application wasn't completely approved before this moratorium, it doesn't count. Is that a legitimate approach?
It's what the courts look at is the distance. So I think Kevin brought it up pretty well earlier. So the idea that we would have to pay damages based on how far in the process they were able to get before the moratorium went up. So it doesn't appear as though, they're getting close to being approved by the zoning board, let's put a moratorium up on this. So that's what the court's trying to prevent from occurring. So does that answer your question?
I guess so.
Okay.
That's all for now.
Okay.
You want to take it? Yes, I do have a couple of questions. So right now, there is no proposed plan for the town of Lysander. If we decided to begin our process of a moratorium ahead of an application coming in, and our process took longer than it took for the application to come in, if we had a moratorium, how would that fall into place?
If you're saying if you were to start the moratorium process, and because you're starting it, you feel as though somebody's attempting to apply because of that?
Yep.
I do not have adequate case law in front of me at this time, but my opinion of that would be a court would see that they're trying to beat you to the finish line with this, which the moratorium will most likely be adhered to at a higher standard than the application in that case.
Okay. So, okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes very good sense. And then recouping the damages, as Kevin had talked about. So, and throw a random number out there, I don't know, when we're talking about recouping the damages, are we just talking about damages in engineering fees and application fees, or are we talking the predicting what the possible income would have been from this?
They could, but it would most likely be more hard costs. It would be cost applied, engineering costs, any current development they put into it, any materials or products they bought before the process began. Everyone's going to make an argument for, what damages or what we would have been earning on this come 2 or 3 years after it was completed. But I don't think that would be a strong claim.
Okay. So in this situation, in your opinion, again, there is no proposed plan right now in front of the planning board or our board or anywhere. If we took measures to begin a moratorium ahead of that application coming to us or to our planning board, in your opinion, we would be the ones not purposely targeting a developer. We would be the ones who are taking proactive steps. It would be the developer who would be considered trying to beat us to the finish line.
If there's no developer now and you start a moratorium process, my understanding, and I'm going to go back and do additional research, and I will provide you with a full written timeline and layout of how this would play out. My opinion is you're starting a moratorium in a vacuum because there is no developer, so the moratorium would stand because the application process had not begun by the time the moratorium process began.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything?
No, I think you guys pretty much answered my questions.
Okay. And I understand that the legal advice given contradicted what I said. I totally understand that. What I want people to understand is whatever we do, the property owner could pursue legal means, and then we're in front of a judge, and whatever a judge's opinion is would play out based on what evidence is supported either way.
And to that point, Kevin, a person can bring a claim for any reason whatsoever, and the town is never going to be immune from people being. It's just it's an inevitability, unfortunately.
Yep. No, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And also, Kevin, I, of course, am not trying to undermine anything that you said. I know you're not an attorney. I know that. So I'm not purposely undermining. I just, when I'm talking with an attorney, I want to
Yeah. So
talk
that's
to
no
our
problem.
engineer. I want
Yeah.
to.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the truth is, there is no yes or no. It's weight. It's factors. It's
Right.
just as you said.
Yeah. I mean, that's, as I said before, this is a board decision. This isn't me in a vacuum. Wherever we end up with this is where we end up with it. So that being said, before we start weighing this, we have 25 minutes before the meeting starts. Are there people, I would like a show of hands first. Is there anybody that would like to come up and address the board?
I have a question.
Right, so you would like to come up and address the board?
No, just have it quote, just have it.
But you're gonna come up to the microphone and you're gonna address the board. I just wanted to see if there were 50 people or 2, and before I had an idea of what I was gonna have to put out for, it should be on.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I had one question, because when I immediately heard it, I said, what about the Three Rivers Preserve? I mean, isn't that a watershed for the whole area? I would be concerned that any use of water would cause an environmental problem that would affect other towns, not just Lysander.
Yes.
So therefore, we'd be liable if we ruin somebody else's water supply.
Right.
So there's an interesting concept.
Yes. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Okay. We'll start at the woman in the back. I think you had her hand up.
You mentioned staying informed, and, we
You might have to come closer to the microphone for the people to hear you.
mentioned staying informed, and I'm just trying to find out the easiest way to have that be done, because when I looked, I didn't see much in the town of Lysander for, tonight when this was announced. Is it possible for you guys to have a page that would update us if an application occurs, or
Yes.
because you don't really want all of us emailing you individually.
No, but here's the reality. We have nothing in front of us. So, this is, right now, it's a concern. Do we all know that the developer may eventually come in and try to put an, yes, I would assume, based on that. But, when people ask me, it's like talking to the police. I'm going to give them the answer I have. Do I have an application in front of me? No. Could I think that your house is worth, $150,000 and you're listing it for $750? That's a decision based on a property owner to decide. Oh, well, it's zoned industrial. Would that fall under our industrial zoning? Absolutely. You can list that, but nobody. When people ask me, because I see proposed, well, it's only proposed on paper on an ad to sell a piece of property. It's not proposed to the planning board. It wasn't run in front of the town board, nor does it have to, given the zoning it is. But it's an idea. And I know that sounds like I'm diminishing it. I'm not, but I have nothing in front of me to tell you other than what has been heard, or seen in the news.
A tab on the website that says,
Yes.
fears about data center, and I click on it, and if there's nothing new, great.
Right, yeah, we have a running notices, ribbon that runs on our town website, and we can put a data center ribbon on it to let people know.
And you did a really nice job of explaining the process of going through the moratorium. Is that on the website as well? The steps, or that's not?
No, I took that off New York State. I Googled New York State land use moratorium, and I got a 21-page process of what worked, what didn't, how judges decide, and I'll tell you, it goes from, you think that's a sure winner, to, nope, it got approved.
Fair enough.
It all depends on what's represented and what a judge, perceives, and what the hardship is created, and that's where it ends up. And then if you win or lose, then you're deciding on the appeal process, depending on who it is. Developer loses, you might appeal. Then it goes to an appellate court. You're back in the same game. Does the appellate court sit there and look at previous work? Sure. Maybe something new came to light. And we've all seen how these processes, that's how you end up at the Supreme Court. You keep arguing your way up the tree. So, it's a process, just like everything that comes in front of us. I mean, the one thing this is not, Timber Banks, hey, it's a 3rd-acre lot, you can build your 2,000 square foot home, here, submit your building plan. That is not the process that would be followed with this project.
But I appreciate anything you can do just so we can check in the
Sure.
website and have an easy update, and not
Right.
stuff shooting through Facebook and rumor and
Yes.
everything. That's all.
Yep, not a problem. I think Mrs. Schmidt, you were ahead of her, so.
Okay, but I talk a lot. In all fairness, you know it. I'll take quick. I talk fast.
I'm Lisa Anderson. I understand the process of the moratorium, but I'm wondering if the board, at the end of the 6 months or whatever expiration date it has, will come up with some zoning changes that would permit a ratio like Rinaldi-wise. And what other things? I mean, I'm sure you're going to be doing your research, 21 pages, for that alone. But there's research to be done with regards to the impacts to community and what you, as town board, can do to influence the county, the state, with regards to electric use, water use, and all that kind of stuff. So is that what you're contemplating at the end of this moratorium?
Normally, a moratorium is created to allow you time to update your codes,
Right.
zoning, permits, issues. So at the end of that 6 months, I'm sure we would be under the gun if we got that far or if we had to go that far of creating whatever we need to enact in our code or whatever we think would address the possible issues.
Okay, so right.
So yeah, that gives you, and this is where, so people understand, I know we had a solar moratorium that went practically 3 years. We've got a battery storage moratorium that went 2.5. The solar moratorium was rescinded back in March, and just to give people an idea of this process. The town board created that moratorium in, I think, April or May of '23, and we had 4 applications hit the planning board for solar. Those applications started to come in, the solar law is a whole section of the code. We didn't create that in 2023. That was already there in like 2018. The code, we allowed solar on AR40 and AR80, anything over AR40. What created the moratorium was seeing projects that were starting to infringe on neighborhoods, clear cutting acres of land to build the solar farm. Things that we hadn't addressed, thought of, or even thought would occur in a process. That's what started those moratoriums. 6 months later, we did the battery storage moratorium because we're seeing in other states where there were fires. Lithium-ion batteries, you gotta let them burn out. Whether it's your phone or your car or a battery storage facility, all you do is take time and keep them cool to not let them get bigger. That's it. There's no magic bullet to put them away. And we still have the battery storage moratorium, but New York State didn't give an update in their fire code until January of how to address battery storage. So that 2.5-year moratorium has been, well, the state didn't address it either. And the state knew there was a problem. The state left it up to the local areas to determine what they were doing. And as I'm sure the town attorney would agree, moratoriums, are you okay?
I'm good.
I don't want you to.
I'm doing okay.
Not on camera. I don't need that. Moratoriums are great until someone wants to challenge them. And like I said at the beginning, that is not going to be, that doesn't affect my decision on whether we move forward with a moratorium or not. But once someone decides to challenge them, now we're in a process where it's a legal process, and you're up to, what does this judge decide? Do we want to appeal it? Where are we at? And that's where, a moratorium, if enacted, we better have, in this case, we better have something to address the moratorium by the end of the 6 months, and it better be good.
Yeah.
And that.
Am I to understand that right now it's industrial property, industrial, you have certain criteria as what kind of be?
Yes.
Is a data center even permitted use.
So our town engineer rolled in while you were, sitting here. So, Mr. Yeager, can you just explain the industrial zoning and
So our industrial zoning is our
Could you
fault.
turn your microphone on for everybody?
Our industrial
You
zone
probably
is
gotta
our
get closer to it.
Does everybody hear me?
You gotta bring it up like 4 inches.
Our industrial zone is our fault zone. So if it's not regulated any place else,
Yeah.
it falls to the industrial zone.
Yeah.
And a data center would certainly be an industrial use by definition, I believe. We don't have, it's just like, I guess, I'll use the analogy of an adult bookstore. You know, it's been challenged in other places. If a municipality zoning code doesn't have a spot for something, it can be challenged in court because you're singling one specific use out. So in this instance, I believe that our industrial zone would be where a data center would fit.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's the other thing for the people on that map. If you pull up our zoning maps, the purple areas are industrial. What you don't see is what's in Radisson that's industrial. Obviously, Anheuser-Busch, McLean, those large facilities are zoned industrial. They're not showing up purple on that map because they fall under the Radisson Business Park, which was initially started by HUD and then handed off to ESD, Empire State Development Corp, oversees the Radisson Business Park. Actual land outside, because Radisson creates that second hoop. You want to build in Radisson, you got to go through the ESD. Then you got to go through the planning board. And that's why industrial zoning was a fall zone for a majority of us, because outside of Radisson, you have one industrial parcel on the west side of 60 Road that is owned currently by one person who I have yet to see him sell his property. And then you have the property at Hinkle in 48, which was because a highway was going to be brought in. And as I said at the last meeting, the original intent was for a bypass to come around Baldwinsville and hook back in roughly where Willett Parkway does to bring people not through the middle of the village for the traffic and the expected increase with development in that area.
All right, well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Do a good job.
Thank you. Was there- Can I just see hands of other people that wanted to, just so I have an idea where I'm going next? Thank you.
I'll talk fast.
Okay.
So I'm Liz Schmidt. I live at 3695 Hayes Road, and as a matter of transparency, the most handsome and intelligent of the counselors is my husband. That is my husband. So I really have to step back and talk about process here, because I think there's been a failure in the process, and maybe now as we're faced with this, we have to mitigate it the best we can, but we need to look forward. So for people that don't know, my civic education began here in 2022. I had never, since 1997, had never gone to a board meeting. But my husband and I had a problem. We didn't feel like the zoning and the code were being appropriately, and it was affecting the quality of our life, and we came to the board. And, I'll be honest, it's been kind of a disheartening civic education. And one of the reasons my husband and I, when we talked about it and he wanted to run, is he wanted this to function better for people who came to the town of Pella. So here's the issue. November, we get an article in the Post-Standard about this idea of, that he wanted to have a data center. The clock starts. The clock started in November when we read this in Syracuse.com. And it would have given potentially more options to be ahead of this and to be proactive and not reactive about it. And this has been an issue. United Auto Parts was going to be there. And the reason it's not there is because some neighbors who didn't want it spent thousands of dollars of their own money to show that the zoning was done incorrectly by this town. Right? So they took a case and they won, but it took significant resources. And the fact is, some people that don't think they're getting that by the town don't have thousands of dollars to fight for that, no matter what the outcome is. There was mistakes with the drainage system. So there was a drainage system that had to be done at much larger expense because apparently in the drainage easement, people got permits to put in pools. And we weren't going to make them rip out the pools because we gave them the permit. And that became more expensive. I would argue that that was probably a failure of process. A clock started ticking before anyone was on this board, I understand, when you actually permitted subdivisions with dry sewers. Those sewers are past their lives, right? And we're just getting started with incentive zoning to have the sanitary sewers in those neighborhoods, right? And there was an implicit promise to deliver them when you permitted housing with a dry sewer with a limited lifespan. And that didn't happen. And so now we actually, so I think when it reaches the planning board, we've seen a lot that's not the planning board, when it reaches the planning board, it's almost too late because then you come through it. And you know, I actually first spoke about data center concerns the 19th at a citizens comment meeting, but here on the 2nd, some other people came to speak at citizens comment, and it was referred to as this is an idea, and it wasn't an idea. You don't on an idea on a whim because there's nothing good on TV decide that you're going to submit a plan to a utility commission to get permission for 300 megawatts. There was already a plan once it went to the utility commission. I mean, that's not a one-page fillable PTF. That was a significant amount of resources for that developer to make their case to try and get that permission. So this has been kind of coming, and I would hope as we look forward, we can get better at anticipating and being proactive about things that might affect the quality of our life. I would just notice as an aside, I was at the waterfront development, my husband is on that committee, and so I went to their open house, and I was taken aback in Van Buren, Lysander, and Village how much mistrust there was of that process. They were just starting. They're like, hey, we're here, can we have some suggestions? And then all of a sudden it got very hostile. Like, well, what are you doing? And I thought, well, how did we get there? I mean, what happened that there wasn't that trust in sort of the local government about what to do? So I have concerns about when this process comes. You described very well about how it plays out, but I'm concerned about how it actually does play out. Because as the other thing, transparent as a matter of public information, I'm a plaintiff in the lawsuit against this town. Because I don't think, it's a taxpayer enforcement suit, because I don't think they followed their zoning, and I don't think they followed their code in a way that has diminished the quality of life in my home, where I've lived almost 30 years. So I have concerns about how this will play out and why it's important to be proactive. And finally, I do have a phone. I do use data, right? I don't like to use AI, and so if that has to disappear without a data center, that would just be an extra bonus. Don't threaten me with a good time. But, you know, I do use a phone, but I also use gasoline to get here. And I don't want a refinery on the Seneca River either. So I think I'm allowed to sort of stand, and people are allowed to stand for both of those things. Thank you.
Someone in there,
Rob McEwen, I live on Ellison Road, and I like that statement. I mean, we all know what his intentions are. So we need to get ahead of that. There's no doubt about it. And speaking of getting ahead of that, he is trying to get ahead of the game. Because you did say you reached out to somebody, right? The grid needs to find out if they need to supply him with the power, and he applied for something. Are we to hear about
For the
something?
NYISO application, he applied in May of 2025.
Okay.
So we were behind this in April of 2025 as a town. Those applications, just so people understand, that doesn't incorporate an email to the town supervisor or the town or planning or zoning. Oh, by the way, somebody's looking to build a 300 megawatt data center. So I guess if you want to point blame, shame on me for not watching the NYISO website to see who's applying.
Not putting the shame anywhere,
you know,
but is there a date
but I mean-
listed with that? April 30th? Are they supposed to try and get some kind of a go-ahead by April 30th? Which means he can go to his next step?
That's what the developer said. I don't have that information. That is what the newspaper provided. I have not
You know who
thought-
the developer is?
Yeah, I know who the developer is.
Not just the owner of the land. Which
No,
would be
I'm sorry.
$50,000.
No, I don't know who the developer is. Do I know Jim Rinaldi personally? No. Do I know Jim Rinaldi as a name? Absolutely. But I do not know whoever he's working with, whatever was said in the paper that he's got a possible
Is that
sale
what he kept
to.
away from us until he applies, or will we ever find that out before he applies?
Normally, how most applications work, someone comes in for an approval, that property might get sold off. Once you have an approval, as Mr. Rinaldi done in the previous years, he had an approval for a 360,000 square foot warehouse. If he sold that and they kept that footprint, they would walk into the planning board, and I don't even know, is a name change. I mean, that's the process. Once you get an approval, you have the approval. You go to your property, you got your 3 acres on Ellison Road. you come to the board to build a house. They don't worry if you haven't built the house in 7 years. They don't tell you you can't build the house. Whenever you submit your plans, you're under whatever building codes are in effect at the time. But if you've got an approval for it, I can build to that code. Correct me if I'm wrong, Al, in that regard.
Yeah, if you have a legal buildable lot, you can come in at any time and get a building permit.
So what you do with that, you take that property and go, hey, you can build a house on this property. It's already approved. Now, you change that footprint, you might have to go back in front of whatever board you need to, but that would start the process over. And that's the case here. There's an approval, a site plan approval for a warehouse that's 360,000 square foot. If anything changes on that, you're coming back to the planning board and you're following a process. A data center doesn't just fall into the warehouse footprint. And
Right.
please correct me if I'm wrong.
I got you. I don't think I'm worried about that. I'm just worried that his intent is there and we're not getting ahead of the game. That's all.
Right, but I
think that we
don't,
should.
could you suggest to me how you get ahead of that game? Do I call the property owner? What's that? Now, hold on. I'm talking to this person. If you want to speak, you'll come up to the microphone and I'll address you. This isn't going to be a free-for-all. I've seen that in the past, and that's a joke, and that's not going to occur. What I don't understand is, so I call the property owner and ask him who he's going to sell to. I'm trying to understand what your expectation is of the board.
Well, he has some kind of plan started. So I'm assuming you could find something else since you called the grid to find out where he was on his process, right?
No, I called National Grid to understand what the requirements and rules and regulations are around the process for the NYISO process, what that entails. Because on Facebook, there's a lot of rumors of, well, we're all going to pay for the substation and transmission lines. Everything I've seen, there's nothing in our town code that says we're going to pay for that. If somebody who sits in New York State and Albany decides they're going to pay for it, that ain't me. I'm not paying for it. I'm going to make sure as much as I can that the taxpayers of Lysander don't pay for that. But if we're going to go into what our utility bills cost us, every person that's added to this state adds to our utility bills. Because it ain't any cheaper to put a pole up, it ain't any cheaper to put a wire down a road. So we all add to the bills. Now, I would hope that in National Grids or whoever's funding or how you pay a bill, that a large utility user would pay a lot higher rate than us in houses. I mean, there's different classes, and I don't know those answers, but there's different service classes and there's different amounts that you pay for on-demand and other things.
A lot of people read on that stuff and they're hearing other things or seeing other things. Not necessarily New York State, could be other states and stuff. You know, everybody's being affected by that.
Absolutely.
Because the data centers are being
And that's,
built up and
but that, I mean, getting to that is what someone decides, the Public Safety Service Commission, what the PSC decides what National Grid can raise their rates for, no different with our insurance. We're not in that room to make that decision. I will reach out to the developer, or the property owner, I'm sorry. I look at a property owner as a developer. Anybody can do what they want with their property if they get the approvals and if it goes through all the processes, they're a developer. If you're developing it for yourself, fine. If you're selling to somebody else, I will reach out to the property owner and see if we can get any more information on who the player is.
tell them that you choke on this part of the food chain.
Thank you. I will have to, because we're gonna start our meeting at 6:30, I'm gonna address, people can talk at citizens' comments,
This is a quick follow-up question to the last gentleman. Very quick.
okay?
Very quick.
Just come to the microphone.
NYISO, that is the entity that the application was submitted to.
Yes,
Can you not foil the application so that you can see what it contains?
I don't know that answer, but I know that Rinaldi Super LLC submitted the application. So I don't know as if they have to name the developer or whoever they're selling the property.
They can redact the name of the developer if they show you the content of the application, perhaps.
I would assume, and there will probably be a lot of redactions, because it probably would get into what the costs are to build utility substations. You know, I don't know. I don't have that answer. Okay, let me start the meeting, and then we can continue with the comments, okay? Just all stand up and do the pledge, and we'll return. So bring the meeting to order. 6:31 p.m. We'll just start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the people who are attending, and there are still multiple people who would like to talk at citizens' comments, we're just going to take off the first couple items on our agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the April 2nd, 2026 minutes? Pete Moore moving it, and I get Ed, sorry. Ed, sorry. All in favor? Aye. Aye, yes. Motion carried, all ayes. What we're going to do is we're going to continue citizens' comments for those that may not have been on live stream or not. We have a lot of people here for the data center proposal application. So I forgot who was next. I'm sorry. Someone had their hand up. I'll say something. Do you want to? I'm sorry. Yeah, please come to the microphone. You can state your name. You don't have to.
Scott Williams. I
sorry that it's
property on the other side of Hinkle Boulevard, so directly adjoining the property where the data center is going.
Well,
is proposed to go. My question is you mentioned, the town, Lycron and the town of Clay getting bulldozed and run over. Now, can they go directly? Because we know that the Rinaldi's not the developer. We know it's a big company, a big AI company probably, that wants to build this and has huge resources. Can they go around the town, go directly to the state? And if they can, is there a way we can prevent that?
To my knowledge, there's nothing in current code, like solar or wind, where it goes to ORES, which usurps a local board authority or even a county authority. To my knowledge, there's nothing that would pull this out of a planning board function at the town level.
So the town stays basically in control?
Yeah, the town would be lead agency in that case of following that process. Correct.
Okay. All right, well, that was my main question.
Yeah. Yeah, I have yet to see where that comes out with anything like this in New York State so far.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey, you were first. Come over to the microphone.
All right, just gonna be quick. I'm nervous in front of everybody here, but I'm Ryan Price, and I feel like what I've heard today is a lot of explanation. Thank you. I've also heard not a lot, but I appreciate your question, and I appreciate you too. You guys were constructive with it right now. I, again, appreciate the explanation, but I feel like what I heard from you is a moratorium is what we need right now, correct? To stop what's going to happen.
Or to enact a new law. But at the end of the day, it's kind of whatever the town determines they want to do.
Okay. So how many people here want the data center?
Ryan, right. Addressing the board.
My point is,
just so people know, I know
him very well.
So this isn't
He's cool. I appreciate Kevin very much. I guess I just want to hear from you guys that you're going to do what is needed to stop this from changing Lysander, from taking all the water. We have Beaver Lake, the splash pad right around the corner, right? That's our tax money. So I guess that's kind of how I look at it is nobody wants it. It's only going to do harm. Now is the time Simply do it now. No other reason. Simply put, I don't want to hear explanations. What we need to do is move forward, so let's move forward. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jeff Coulter, Farnham Road, and I'll echo the last guy. Thank you for what you guys are doing tonight, answering our questions. Real quick question, Kevin, you said the moratorium allows you the time if necessary to change laws if that's required, right? So you had said at the beginning, probably everybody here is concerned about things like water usage, other environmental impacts. Does the moratorium have anything to do with allowing time for those environmental studies? Like, how does that impact on our water table work? Does it happen during the moratorium? Does it happen in another part of the process? What's the impact study following?
Right. So I'm gonna defer to the town engineer on this one because he handles the majority. He's also our planning and development director or overseeing that. And he works with the planning board also because I'm gonna assume that a lot of that is handled at that level, but we could also write into our codes to address those concerns.
Yes. So, and this is, I've heard the water thing over and over and over again, and I think there's somewhat of a misconception there. In the research that I've done, 9 out of 10 of these facilities is cooled with a closed loop glycol geothermal system.
Right, but let's say they're not. So let's just address this like they're pulling water out of the ground.
If they're pulling water out of the ground, it would be, that study would be addressed through the seeker process, State Environmental Quality Review. There is a question on the full EAF, which a full EAF would obviously be required for this project, about water usage and water consumption. And the town, and its review of seeker would have the ability or requirement, if there was a large withdrawal of water, to have the developer perform a study to show what the effects of that are, and if the effects were negative on the community, require the developer to mitigate that in some way, or limit their water usage.
Right. Now, if that was determined that he was going to be provided county water to suffice that issue, that would probably be addressed by the county water authority, because I would assume that there would be a process of how does this water get exchanged? Does it go to a sewer? I mean, I'm going to assume that would be addressed by, it would be a question of the planning board of, okay, so where's that water going after that fact? What is it being used for?
So, just again, my understanding on this is, if you're going to use public water, the approval to use that public water would have to come from the county water authority.
Right.
If you're going to send that water that you use for cooling down the sewer, the approval for that would need to come from the Onondaga County Water Environment Protection. We just met last week with the county, earlier this week actually, with County Water Environment Protection, and there is not a huge capacity at the wastewater treatment plant to handle a massive increase in flow if this facility was going to use public water for cooling and discharge it to the sewer.
Those would be addressed at the county level by approvals or denials.
Correct.
Each of those. So it's one, it's a county process at that point, that the planning board would receive those and be told if that's, that's an allowed use. We're good on both ends if it was going through the county system.
So the question, I was using water as an example, but it's really all of the environmental impacts, including sound. I don't know if that one's significant or not, but I think my question is, if it goes to the county, if it goes to other groups for that type of study and approval, what's the process for our voices to be heard in that?
So that is purely an engineering, as far as capacity for water and sewer, that's purely an engineering calculation. that it's not a public comment. It's yes, we have capacity to supply this amount of water, and yes, we have capacity to treat this amount of waste. It's not something that would require a public hearing. It's purely a scientific engineering study, and no more, no less. The planning board can say yay or nay on if they feel that there would be an impact based on capacities at the county level for water supply and water treatment.
Okay, see it? There's not
very transparent, right?
well, it's at the county level on that. I don't believe they have hearings or input. You could probably send it, send something to the county if you see the project come across, but that's a them circle. This is our circle, and that's the process.
If it gets to them, can you let us know? Right, because we'll want to try and find.
That would be an active application in front of the planning board to get.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I mean, could someone have informal discussions and go into WEP just like a town does? Absolutely. Do they send me the information on that? No. I mean, sometimes the letters are different after people's names, and the communication breaks down. That's all I can say about it.
Can I add real quick?
Sure.
So there are things that the board would look at. For instance, do we need to update the noise ordinance, or want to apply some rules for what the exterior of the building should look like? Or even, I don't know where else it would fall, so probably just for, if there's a lot of thermal discharge from this site into the environment, that would probably fall under SEPR, under the planning board there. So there will be pieces that the town covers as well, and obviously we'd be happy to give input in and provide feedback on those.
Next person. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go on, come on up. You're okay. Yes, please.
So, the lady over there said we all use data, right? We all use data, but we don't have a data center in our backyard. So it exists without it being wherever you guys, or wherever somebody wants to put it. I know you didn't want us to address environmental issues because we all apparently know what they are. A lot of us are pretty concerned about them. Well, no, I'd like to know, wait. To your comment about what I said, we all use data. Well, we all use data. We don't have one right here. So what are, in your mind, if you're for it, and I think you are, what are the benefits to the community that outweigh all of these disastrous environmental impacts that we all face? I'm sorry for the way I asked the question, and this face looks like one.
And I'm sorry for the way I came across. I'm not discounting the environmental concerns, but we all understand what the environmental concerns are.
Yeah, we do. I'm asking you, do the benefits to the community outweigh those, what we think are disasters to the environment? Because I don't.
Right. And I understand that. And that's where, if we enacted a moratorium or if we don't, we work on our code, we will try to address those concerns.
Okay, but
please, let me finish. When you sit through a seeker process, I am certain you will be irritated with how the answers are. But I urge people to go to the state website and print out the seeker process, and don't just read the yes or no's. Read the reasons you would say yes or no to an answer before you get irritated.
Okay, but I think it's simpler than that. Engineers talking about environmental impacts, water usage, and it sounded like he thinks that maybe our idea of our water usage is not correct. And go back to my original point, which you made, there are data centers other places. Did you talk to people in these environments or these communities where these data centers are to see what the impacts are to their communities?
No, I have
It seems
not.
pretty simple to me.
I actually reached out today to a municipality out near Buffalo that has a fairly large, it's actually a Bitcoin mining operation. It's in a little power plant, to set up a meeting to talk to them about what they've seen and what their, what the process was and what the impacts have been to the residents. So we are working on that, trying to get a meeting set up with the codes department, codes and planning department there, and the town supervisor to talk to them and see. That facility there is 250 megawatts, so it's a little bit smaller, but similar in size.
Okay, well, I hope it's more than one, because one's not a sample, you know. The sample is more than one.
There's not a whole lot of these upstate. I'll be perfectly honest. There's some of them downstate, there's not a whole lot of these upstate.
I understand it, and maybe there's a reason why. Anyways, thanks for giving me the mic.
Person in the middle, yeah.
Thanks, Derek Pratt, 14 MacArthur Road. So you mentioned this process. I think everyone here would agree that moratorium seems like what we want to do. 4 to 6 week process. You've also bemoaned how people aren't super involved in town politics and stuff. That's because it's Byzantine and it's complicated. So I don't even fully know the process. Can we begin the process for a moratorium tonight? And if so, are you guys committed to that? Because if not, that's a shame and a stain on your legacy.
What I would say is, after we get done with the public comments, the board is probably going to have a discussion, and we're going to pick that path forward tonight.
So you can begin it tonight.
We can start the process tonight, yes. What that process would entail is, first we have to determine what the law would state, how it would be worded, and that would not be, if we sit here and say yes, then we're going to ask our attorneys to start crafting the local law.
Sure.
Of what that resolution would require, and then at the next meeting or hold an emergency meeting to move that path forward.
Great, perfect. Second question. You said that moratorium is one tool in the toolbox. This is, I think, an existential threat to the fabric of the town. I don't know, we should be going down to Ace Hardware and buying every single tool to add to our toolkit. Are there other avenues you guys are willing to pursue to block this data center further?
Well, when you say block, where a moratorium ends up will probably be a code to permit what an allowed data center would be and list guidelines. So I don't want people to be overly excited over you walk out of here and, oh, they're banned. I mean, that would obviously be challenged because we have somebody actively looking for something. But we would put together, and that's where I said, application comes in the meantime, we have to address it. Sure. We have to determine legally where that process plays out with the moratorium, where we're at. But then the toolbox becomes what the planning board has at their use if they get an application. So what I was trying to explain, the moratorium in creating the law is where the town board responsibility on this ends. We create the law, the application comes in, it goes to the planning board. They don't walk in here and give it to the town board and we determine yes or no that it goes to the planning board. Town of Clay does things a little differently with site plan approval. Every town might do them a little differently with their approval process. And it's how the process works in the town of Lysander.
Sure, yeah, okay. I'm just saying, as many speed bumps as possible should be put in their way to building this data center. And are you willing to look into whatever legal avenues there may be to further, because I don't think it should just be town of Lysander does this.
But it can't be unjust. Remember, we've all,
Well, this data center's unjust, so.
that's a personal opinion. And for people to think I'm in favor of something, you're wrong. Let me explain that. I'm also in favor of personal property owners' rights. So when you come and you want to build a pool or fence, I know you're not building a data center, but you have an avenue, and I would defend that right for anybody else.
My pool would not poison the rest of the
Right,
town.
well, that could be your opinion on that process. The neighbor might hate your pool because now they have water going into their yard because of your pool, because where do you backwash it to? So we have to remember, there's rights on both sides. And Mr. Helfrich, I'm sure when he'll speak, will tell you that when Mr. Rinaldi brought his proposal up for a warehouse, we had a conversation. And I said, sorry, I'm for the property owner to have the right to bring it to the planning board. The town board before that built the tool case for the planning board to use. And those people sit up here and make a difficult decision of what a community balance is and what would be approved. And somewhere at the end of it is what we end up with. And then the town board can sit there and review it and go, that's not the path we wanted to go down. So then we sit there and start picking our code apart and going, where are the shortcomings? Where are the failures? So that's what I'm saying is the process. I'd love everybody to raise their hands on who's made every right decision in their life right now.
Pretty sad.
I got a couple people out there. But, that's the reality. We're all doing what we feel is best. This board will decide what the path forward is for what we think is the best for the community. I'm just telling you that you leave here thinking that I'm going to sit here and say, I want a data center. You shouldn't leave here with that mentality. But I'm also not going to sit here and say, I'm against any person to bring what they feel they want to do with their property up and follow the proper channels. And I would hope that everybody would be in agreement with at least that part. We might differ on the path after that, but I think we all, most people as property owners and even adults, we all, look at our personal freedoms and what we can do. And I'll tell you, one thing I learned in the country is how picky people get about their property and what happens to it. And I will never take someone's right away to come to a town board or a planning board and ask for a zone change or ask for something to change, because what is there now might not be their intent. We're going through that with Melvin Farms. As Mr. Schmidt said, 30 years ago, we put 115 dry sewers in the part of the peninsula, and it took us almost 30 years to finally get to where those people are going to have sewers. That process of Melvin Farms went through probably 6 planning boards in 20 years to get where we think this is the best effort and the best efficient way to do that. Are there people in disagreement on 537 possible housing units on Melvin Farms? Absolutely. Does it solve a problem that has been created by maybe the town or maybe developers 30 years ago? Yes, and that's where we have to weigh that out.
All right, well, those were my questions. Please pass the moratorium.
Hi, board. My name's Thomas Fugia. I'm 27, lived on Snowy Hollow for 15 years since we moved up here. A million other places I'd rather be, but I think this is super important, so that's why I'm here. I know you mentioned Dryden banned the data centers and Skaneateles has put a moratorium. And to your knowledge, neither location had any form submitted to build those data centers when those went through. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, so nobody has submitted a form in Lysander to build one yet. Is that correct?
No, there is no formal application in front of the planning board.
So what is the biggest difference between Lysander and Dryden or Skaneateles in that regard? As far as us not taking proactive choices. I mean, on November 26th, you commented to Syracuse that you had no knowledge about the permit application. At this point, you have now known for 4 months. I mean, to me, the biggest difference sounds like a lack of either initiative or drive from you guys. It sounds like you just don't care until you have 200 people.
I wouldn't say, well,
sitting in
Mr.
front of you.
Smith wasn't even.
Well, yes, sorry,
Nor was Mr.
sorry,
Maine.
Mr. Smith, but you've known for 4 months. So why has there been no kind of movement? What separates us from Skinny Atlas or Dryden in that regard? Why do we have to wait until it is an emergency case for us to move forward with this?
I don't have an explanation for that.
You haven't had an explanation for a while.
But you're absolutely right. And I will explain this. My term's up next November. If you want to get involved in that process of sitting in this seat and dealing with the day-to-day work that goes with town supervisor. No, I'm going to answer the question. And if you want to be involved, that process usually starts in November or December to get on a board.
I'm involved right now as I speak.
I understand. And I'm telling you, I don't.
You shouldn't have to tell me to run for a position to have an impact on my community when I can have an opinion, I can show up, I can speak to board members, and you can try to blow me off, try to make excuses, tell me to run in November. It's weak.
No,
So
I'm not blowing you off. I'm explaining to you that your opinion of me doing nothing, which I haven't acted on this. There's also 3 other members on the board that had the same information as me. I am one of 4 at that time.
Yeah, and you're the one in front of me, so unfortunately this is who it's directed to.
And that's fine. That's what I ran for.
So what went through your mind 4 months ago when you heard about 300 megawatt proposal at that lot? What was your, did you look into it? Did you make any kind of initiative?
What I looked at is a person has applied to Mizio to look at what they can do. And I sit here trusting our process at a planning board level and what we have in our tools to require someone to develop something.
I mean, I think that trust has obviously been misguided, as here we all are now, 4 months later, scrambling to come up with a solution. We're scrambling to get you guys to have an emergency meeting, vote on it today. I mean, I don't know why this is going over the weekend. It should be done today. I mean, this is what my taxpayer dollars go towards, for you guys to sit here on a late Thursday night and vote on it, because this is important to the community. So it's ridiculous if this process isn't started immediately after this meeting.
My name is Ralph Mills. My brother and I own the farm that borders the north side of this property. When you talk about water, there's a couple kinds of water. There's water the data center uses to cool itself. The research I've done says that a facility of 300 megawatts would be a 750,000 to 1 million square foot facility. It could use upwards of 1 million gallons of water a day. I don't know where they get that from unless they pumped it out of the Senate head. But there's also the water that runs off from 1 million square feet of roof and the parking lot that's surrounding it. And the only place for that water to go is across our farm. That's where it goes now, and I don't know how you get water to run it there. So to move on from me, my brother, and the farm that we grew up on to the process. A moratorium does nothing for us. A moratorium kicks the ball down the road 6 months, a year. If you use that moratorium to prevent data centers from being built in the town of Lysander, the moratorium is valuable. If you use it to cap the size of a data center, maybe to the 360,000 square feet that he was allowed to build a warehouse. But 1 million square feet, there's nothing close to 1 million square feet in the town of Lysander. Anheuser-Busch is probably 300,000 or 400,000 square feet, a third of the size. I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Michael Henry. First off, there are a lot of... I'm sorry.
there's an awful lot of things going on here, but what I'd like to find out is when are the meetings for the planning committee? And is there a mechanism that could be created where anything, any information in a timely manner can be put out on the webpage of anybody that brings in any kind of a inquiry or whatever application, I guess, for this data center. The other thing I wanted to, I have a draft resolution here for a moratorium for data centers, and I'd like to present it to the town attorney, have him take a look at it, and if this is, make whatever changes you require so that you got to get started on this. You got to
Please address the board.
Sorry. But yeah, this is great being able to sit here and talk with you guys. But this is what needs to be done, and so I just would like to offer this to the attorney and we can get started on it.
Mentioned it, alluded to that.
Might have to stretch, you can hold it, you can take it out and hold it. Usually I break that.
Basically, you alluded to that data centers, you hear me now? Thank you. Data centers could fall under ORES. Those who are not familiar with ORES, that is the Office of Renewable Energy Site. Okay, if that's the case, a lot of these wind projects, solar projects fall under ORES. Data centers do. The town really has no say. Okay, so if you have an issue, I suggest you FOIL Public Service Commission, which ORES falls under. Okay, as a backup, because the town can only do so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And at this time, to my knowledge, ORES does not oversee data centers. They've only taken over the solar and wind, and I believe we're looking at battery storage. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to that?
My question is going to be more...
You have to get a little closer to the mic.
Okay. My question is going to be more, why can't we? All right? And I'm going to use the word alignment as well as moratorium. Right now, in the New York State Senate, it's bill number S9144. It was submitted on February 6th by Liz Kruger, who is a Democrat from Manhattan, and it is a 3-year moratorium on data centers in the state of New York. That was submitted on February 6th. Also, in the Assembly Bill number A10141 matches the bill in the Senate, a 3-year moratorium in the state of New York on data centers. The Senate bill is currently in the Environmental Conservation Committee. So my question to you is, why can't we, as the town of Lysander, match up to this process in Albany and say, we want to be linked to this legislative process? 3 years. Maybe the moratorium is going to be 2 years. Maybe it's going to be a half an hour. Maybe they're going to come out with a lot of regulations to cover water, sound, the pressure on electricity. We can link up to that. We're not liable, but we got a moratorium and we're following the state. Why can't we do that?
Good question.
Thank you. So currently, that's not a passed bill.
No, it hasn't passed yet.
Right.
It's in the, it'll take a year in the process. We link up to the process. Why can't we do that?
If they pass a state law, it will affect you anyway.
Right, exactly. But in the meantime, it gives us cover while this thing is going on.
I'm just trying to I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. You would say in our resolution of the moratorium to refer to the Senate and the Assembly
We're going to link up to
in the
the
hopes that
state.
those move forward. Right.
And it may not be binding but persuasive, perhaps, but it's not a law. So it's not.
No, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
We're linking up to the process. And that way there, the work that's going to be done by the Environmental Conservation Committee, some of that would be beneficial for us in terms of knowledge.
Sure. Yes, you're right.
That's something I think we should do.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Let's start the process.
Is there any?
I just want to say that how relieved I am to find them with people who also have the instinct to say what's right for the forests and our water and our air, and have concerns about what's happening to our children's minds with technology. And it's startling to hear that some people don't have that instinct and that are ready to take money to give it away.
Is there anyone else?
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I live in Boltonsville.
You might have to. You got to be fairly close to them. The reason for that is if they're turned up, you'll have a hum that you will hear through the microphone system.
I have a question. In my mind, that piece of land that they want to build the data center on, it just keeps getting turned down in terms of things being built on it because of the zoning.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, is that better? Yes. So my question is, how hard would it be to change the zoning designation for that piece of property? Because I feel like that would kind of nip everything in the bud. So if we were able to change that, it wasn't an industrial zoned area, and kind of changed it maybe to residential due to like the environmental impact statements on like Three Rivers, or something like that. I didn't know if that would be something that we could just do to kind of get ahead of everything.
I'm not gonna, the town attorney will probably have an opinion, but Three Rivers Wildlife butts up to the Radisson Business Park. And a majority of Radisson drains into the Three Rivers Wildlife area. So I think that would be a tough argument to make for that 120 acres when we already have like 600 acres that is zoned industrial. Now you get into wetlands and setbacks and things like that, but I think that would be a difficult thing, especially with someone that finally purchased this property in 2021 with an intent to use it as an industrial zone. Now, if that person came to the board, normally how zone changes occur one of two ways. The board sits there and just redefines their zoning map, and we, pick places, and then there's a whole, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an entire public hearing process that plays out on the zoning changes that would go to county planning, would go to our planning board to decide to pull that off of being industrial. So 10 years ago, that was probably an opportunity if you sat there when it was still being farmed and said, hey, let's move it to agricultural. When that goes back to a property owner's rights of that purple piece has been purple for a long time. And, the idea was to get people out of the village and concentrate population in the village or surrounding that and grow around and have a subcircle like 481 where people would be able to travel. So that was the intent of zoning industrial, I believe, back at that time, was you're gonna build a highway here, this is a great place for that kind of commercial or, medium to high density usage, because you have the travel pattern necessary to move it. But it would occur one of two ways, either the property owner asking or the town board redefining the zoning for the parcel.
And the process to redefine the zoning, is that something that would be able to be done, or is there a precedence of how long? Because it's been
That would
10 years,
actually-
you can't rezone it?
No, they would actually start with a comprehensive land use plan update.
Okay.
Right. Which we were just discussing last week.
Okay.
In our
For
comprehensive
committee
plan.
members, right? You're looking for committee members on the planning committee.
So that's something that you could look into as possibly?
Yes, it's a possibility.
Okay. Do you think it's a good possibility, or?
I don't know. So usually how the comprehensive land use plan goes is town board determines a path of what we want to address. Previously, we addressed a very finite part when we revisited the comprehensive plan that was created back in 2016 or 17, I believe, 2015. It all depends on the scope of the project. It takes time. I can tell you, COVID didn't help the revisiting of the club, but it was probably a 4-year process between starting it to getting it in front of board meetings and multiple public hearings about, clauses, sentences, defining areas, and, it's up to what the board decides. We go to the county planning for referral, they give comments, our local planning and zoning boards give comments. So it's a long process.
Is there anything that we can do to help speed that up, or if we have a moratorium, is that something that us as residents of the area could be aggressive with?
If you want my honest opinion on the most aggressive way to change a zoning is to own the property.
Is there a second aggressive way?
Because if a landowner comes in and asks for a zone change, now usually you've got to define, is it spot zoning? Are you asking for something to be industrial in the middle of residential? That, there's certain things. Normally going less isn't a heavy lift, but it's usually zone changes are precipitated by property. Okay, the planning board comprehensive plan is usually we're defining areas of what we think, the opportunity to development, what resources are there, what would help that area is normally where a comprehensive plan goes with that process.
Thank you.
Hello. The gentleman in the purple hat had a question of when is the next planning board meeting?
They meet on the second Thursday of the month.
Consistently?
Yes.
And is their agenda posted for the public to see?
Yes, it's on the website. Usually when the agenda's done, it gets posted right here at the clerk's, I think over at the planning board, they put the agenda up for the public. The planning board clerk puts it on their board.
And on the website, so then everybody can see what applications are going to the planning board?
Yes, absolutely. And if you don't see it posted, usually it's posted by that Monday, feel free to call, because it might either be a delay in getting the clerk or putting it on the website, but it should be available.
I promise not to drag this out. Hi, Jen Baker. I'm representing my street. They would kill me if I didn't talk, and I would probably die if I didn't talk at my first town board meeting. So, hi. I appreciate all the information that you've given us here tonight. And I just want a little bit of clarification, just like everyone said. I promise I'll be short. So when you say that we can put the moratorium in, and there are two ways, the other way was a law, is it a possibility to work on the law while we're working on the moratorium? So you vote on the moratorium tonight, looks like you already got a draft, so that we can also move forward and come up with some law that will help prevent this?
So you work on the law during the moratorium. If you cut somehow to write a law that would be encompassing, which I would say is not, you wouldn't want to do that tonight, but you want to evaluate So you do the moratorium to give you time to do investigation, to write the law, to investigate other places, to write the law, to hopefully get to a law at the end of the moratorium. If you're not there, there's an opportunity to renew the moratorium for another 6 months. As Kevin said, there's a moratorium right now that's been going on for about 2 years for the battery sites. So it gives you quite a bit of time to do the investigations because there's a lot that goes into it when you're trying to write.
Okay, so Ed over here looks like he's done a lot of research. You're contacting someone in Buffalo. Although I felt like you were looking for some positives, I need you to look for some negatives on their codes and what codes they would write to prevent this. And then maybe we could get that law in order. That's all I have to say.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Catherine Thompson. So one question I did have, if it's not already been discussed, is non-disclosure agreements. There has been a lot of talk throughout each and every state almost where data centers are, in which some have signed town board, planning board members, non-disclosure agreements. Now, that stops transparency, which is not good a look. So we would like to know if things move forward in a way, if there would be a law or ordinance passed, or however that may happen, that no town board member may sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Those are against the law.
I think what the commenter was trying to say that if we enacted, a town board member would have an NDA with a developer or a property owner on what could occur with that. I would only say that, I don't even know where to go with that because I don't think it would be. You can't disclose proprietary information, but that's not. Usually, that's a trust of you're in a conversation, which I've got to be in one of those, and that you would walk out of there knowing something that would be proprietary to a developer that would give an unfair advantage or hinder any kind of what they're looking to achieve. So, correct. Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Please come up. I know it's a pain.
It's not a pain.
I just want to.
I asked her husband. He said she could.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just really want to address a couple things that were brought up. One, that Buffalo site that you guys are talking about, and Mr. Mangan, I believe I've been back and forth with you on this. That was a 5-0 vote on that. They voted for it, but that was repurposed land already. That wasn't like we're talking about over here on the corner of Hank Boulevard. I've lived on Dingle Road for 35 years. I moved out there to be in the country, not to be in the middle of some salve or something like that. It just, the water that you're talking about, repurposing, and I'm not picking on you, but when they were trying to put water down the road, our road, you came out with something that we had third world country water. I have that on paper from you. So coming up with this deal where they recirculated or whatever you've come up with here, and again, not to pick on you, but you're not a Lysander resident. So we are really concerned about this. And I just wanted to make a couple corrections. As far as that plant you guys keep referring to, that is not on green, fresh, like it is on Henkel Boulevard. It's completely, they had a coal, some kind of coal plant there or something before. So they weren't taking green space and going in there, and all of a sudden, they'd already had something big there. Did you know that?
Yes.
You did, but you failed to mention it.
Well, I don't think it's the same environmental concerns.
But they already had one there, so it wasn't new concerns. I mean, what happened when they put the coal plant there? I'm sure that And not only that, it's on Lake Ontario. It's right next to Lake Ontario for the water supply.
Okay.
Is it not? Am I wrong?
No, it is.
Okay, well, you just failed to mention all that. All you said was...
Let me correct you. Al has been looking into what data centers that are built, what projects are approved, the process they follow, as to how and where.
But why are they picking that one that was already there? Why not pick one that's like this one with a new,
Right.
completely new? Why would you compare one?
I don't think the intent was. I think the intent is...
I've heard it from the counselor and I've heard it from our engineer now, both of them, because I've been researching this and talking back and forth.
Right. And the town of Lansing's on an old coal-fired plant. But let me go back to the planning board process of looking over, a site. With this intended use, what would that take? What would that occur? What would be the impact to the public? I think Al's just looking at, we don't have a lot in that scale in New York State. I know there are issues in every other state. You also have to look at their environmental guidelines of how they allow it. It's not in New Jersey they did this. You've got to read through their thousands of pages of environmental guidelines. Al's trying to look at what's been built in New York, what follows the same environmental rules, what did they encounter, what were they up against, what was allowed, how did that process play out? I don't think...
But again, they both referred to the same one in Buffalo that was already, it's on repurposed land, basically.
Right.
So instead of saying, oh, well, there was one just built wherever, the two places that you said, are they new? Did they come in and what problems did they have? Or, that wasn't the one. They used the one that was already on repurposed land.
And what we're going with is an application that was put into NYISO. We don't have an application in front of us to consider, did you ask for 300 megawatts and now, NYISO gave you 25 megawatts? It's a hard window to look at, so he's looking at what's large scale. That's the same thing with our moratorium. If we enact it, are we banning all data centers? Are we putting a moratorium on all of them? Because that's a great thing to say, but what we don't know is who has data centers already that might be 15 megawatts in the town of Lysander. I don't have that. I don't know if Budweiser or McLean already has something that would qualify as a data center. So if we go and say, oh yeah, nothing over 15 megawatts, and McLean goes, we really qualify as a data center and we've got 18, then they're grandfathered in, but then now they can't expand. And this is where the explanation of the moratorium comes into play of what level are we looking at? We're fishing in the dark as to what the path forward is, because right now, we just know what he's applied for.
I understand it, Kevin, but you know what? I'm hearing from up here, it's limited. The people are bringing more attention to the different things than what's being out here. He knew that. It's like you're holding back, I guess is my point. And you're picking these places where, they've been in there, they was on repurposed property.
But
it's not the same. You can't compare the two of them.
But it's not... Al is doing research. It's up to the board to determine how that law is written.
Mr. Mangan, didn't you tell me you were going to Buffalo to see what the yeah, you did.
I'm not only going to Buffalo, but I'm doing research on all data centers. Not because I've made a decision one way or the other, but because I feel like it's my duty to provide for the community the best answer that I can provide for them. So I can't just take things that I see on TikTok or Facebook and believe them to be true. I want to go see places. I want to go see communities, whether it be the exact same. I don't even know what they're going to propose here. Nobody knows what they're going to propose here as far as a closed loop system or water system or whatever. What I want to do is get as much knowledge as I can about the entire subject, just like the gentleman in the blue said. What are you doing to get knowledge so that you can bring it back to the community? That's what I'm doing. So I don't.
Okay, then I'll stand in front of you
I
because you didn't tell me
finish.
that. You said you were going to one.
Right.
One place.
You also didn't ask, you just came up here and accused. But what I'm saying is, all I'm doing is gathering research from everything, right? I haven't made a decision one way or the other whether I want data centers or don't want data centers.
Well, you got a big house here and
absolutely, and I appreciate that. Just like
say that says it all.
Just like I said to you when you text me, right? I appreciate that you reached out to me. I appreciate that you told me how you feel because I want you to. Because the only way that I can make a decision and the only way I can do my job is if people of the community that I serve tell me how they feel, right? That's what I have to do. I totally get it, and I appreciate that everybody was here. But I didn't look at Buffalo's site just because it was on pre-purposed land or not pre-purposed land. I just looked at it because A, it's in New York State, and B, it's accessible to me to go talk to people about it and what their concerns are, what the community concerns were about it. That's why Buffalo was brought up. And Al brought it up because I brought it to Al, and I said, this is what I'm doing. You know, in his research, he also is interested in learning more about data centers. In full disclosure, I've only been on the board for 3 months, right? I have only heard about data centers being an issue in the last 2 weeks. So my knowledge is very limited. It's very hard for me to make a decision, and I think that I would be doing you an injustice if I made a decision based on not knowing anything. So my point for going to Buffalo and I spent 15, 20 hours this last week just researching different things on data centers, and good and bad, both, right? I think that it's our duty to gather information from all sides of this in order to make a decision.
Well, when I was researching it, I came up with more in different states that were totally against it and tried to stop it than I did anything positive.
100%.
Yeah. There's no
I don't
question about
disagree.
that. And
I don't
again,
disagree
somebody
that
brought
there's
it
more-
up earlier. What are we gaining from this? You know, I mean.
And those are also things that I'm researching, right? I mean, what can we gain? What kind of community?
Yeah, what benefit is it?
Yeah, what benefit to us, any of us? It's more of a hindrance, and it's more. I think it's not a health thing. I think that.
And I appreciate all of you guys who are here for or against it coming and saying it. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll do it like this. Good evening. I'm Christine Braunberger, and I need to take a couple steps back from where you start your work. If someone, a developer, comes along and puts in $60 million for this parcel of land, which is, I think, what we read as a suggestion, then doesn't that money sort of outweigh all of us? Doesn't the possibility of just the tax revenue outweigh our concerns about decibel levels and our environment?
It doesn't weigh into a decision for me.
It's going to weigh into a decision on some level. And when we see the places that they've gone in, and I was just reading University of Chicago reporting on this, it doesn't matter. The point is that a lot of communities that have had to fight against data centers were doing it in just the very kinds of spaces that we're in right now. And so it feels, as my community members, it just feels so important that you see how serious this is. It can't be later. That's all.
Thank you.
One more thing. I came up earlier. I can have something positive to say about this. Is that people don't realize how rapidly technology is changing. Micron is going to be building the greatest semiconductors for memory in existence, and they will be so much faster and smaller than what we have now. That 1 million square feet may go down to 100,000 square feet by the time they're done with this building of the data center. They aren't going to get built overnight. So maybe that's something to think of as a positive. Maybe we're doing something smart rather than bad. I'm in technology. I was in technology for many years. Many of you have cell phones. This cell phone has more memory than any computer that existed 10 years ago. So what does that mean? That means they're getting smaller and much stronger and faster and less toxic. So maybe there is a chance that will be a good thing. We don't know at this point. We got to do serious research, including you looking into Micron's future products. What is it going to look like when they put those in the data center here? Because they will. Because they look right down the street.
Right.
I would be surprised if they're not behind it. That's my theory.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I actually wasn't planning on speaking, but I felt that the last comment may have convoluted the conversation just enough to introduce a little bit of confusion. I'm not an expert, but regardless of what Moore's Law says about how much smaller transistors and everything are going to get, I don't think we should be making decisions today based off projected technology evolution that may or may not impact it. If we were to sign anything or approve an application, however your process works, that's what we're stuck with. And so just to level set, because there's been a lot of good points that have been brought tonight, I think what we're asking for is the moratorium to enable you to do exactly what you said. Have some time to do the proper research, to look into the cons and whatever perceivable pros there might be, although they seem very distant and removed for the impacts that would be had on the people here today, tonight. And nobody here is representing themselves as an expert in the space, nor should they, but you all are an expert in protecting our interests. And when you have 200 people here, and I will address the board, I will respect your rules, I won't address the people behind me. However, hypothetically, if I asked the people behind me to raise their hand if they were opposed to the idea of a data center, I promise you, most, if not all, hands would be up. People would be standing, cheering, round of applause. My ego would be thriving. But I won't do that out of respect to this board. What I did here, to kind of sum it up, because I know we're running out of time, is that moratoriums have the best impact or the best value if introduced prior to an application surfacing. That's why in Dryden and Skinny Atlas, they've been successful apparently. I'm not as informed as you are on that, but it was done before the application. If we are at a point now where no application has been submitted, now is the time. And if we're saying we need more time to understand the benefits, I see no reason why we shouldn't wake up tomorrow and hear the great news that the board decided to buy some time to do the appropriate level of research before enabling decisions that could have dramatic impacts, not just on everybody in this room, but their children, their parents, their neighbors, so on and so forth. I've heard 40 or 50 people speak. I haven't heard one person say go for it. I think best case scenario is people are saying be thoughtful. I think the people who have valid concerns are saying this is not something that we want in our backyard. You passing a moratorium would enable you to have the time to develop whatever perspective you think is going to be in the best interest of everybody in the room.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? This is citizens' comments, so when I read...
I'm going to say one more thing. Just to round it off. Okay. So, what I wanted to revisit real quick, what good comes from data centers for us that you found in your 15 hours of research?
Me personally?
Yeah, you said you've done about 15 hours of research over the past few weeks. What's a benefit for us?
Well, most of my research in the first 15 hours has been people come to me talking about water, the environmental things that we've all touched on. So in the best interest of answering their questions better, I've spent the majority of it on that. But I mean, the obvious one is tax revenue is coming out.
Yeah, and I respect that. With Micron coming though, this seems like something that can do much more of a hindrance than good, right? So we are known for our wildlife. Beaver Lake, right? Turtles are like gone from when I was a child. We don't want it any worse, right? I feel like what's going to bring us value is our trees and who we are in Baldwinsville. make Baldwinsville beautiful, right? Like that's our slogan, I believe, something close to that. So my main point to this is, when you research it, I don't see any positives. I only see negatives. So you guys thinking about it and overthinking about it and trying to display both sides is really not valid when it's only benefiting one person. We are the rest of the people, right? That's all I want to say. That's it. Right. Thank you.
I just want to make, is this citizens' comments?
Yes, it is. Yep.
All right, so I apologize. This is not about the data center. I am here to, I heard a rumor that Mr. Moore, Councilor Moore, was putting in his, he's going to be retiring from the board. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for your service. Your timing is amazing. I also want to congratulate your wife. Sometimes we use spouses as sounding boards when things get a little chaotic, and hopefully, Ann, you're not going to have to be that sounding board anymore. But you've done a great job. I came in with you, I served with you, and I look back on that with fond memories. So thank you for your service to the town.
Thank you, Joe, for taking half of my supervisor's comments. But for those who, I don't know if you don't know Joe Saraceni, I don't know where you've been. So, but Joe was not only a previous mayor, he was also a former town supervisor of the town of Lysander. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, one more.
So the only benefit that I've heard is the tax revenue. And can you explain a little bit more about what the benefits of the tax revenue could be? And considering that Micron has a huge cut in what they would have to pay for taxes typically, it just kind of sets the tone to think that we wouldn't really have much tax benefit. And would the tax benefit take care of the issues that we have with water, with our air, with the sound, with the cost of with the property value declining? Would the tax revenue offset that? So of course, you probably can't answer that now, but I think it's the most important thing to consider when you're thinking about pros and cons. A lot of people think, oh, environment's not important. We want the money. We want the money. We need the money to build up our village. We need the money to do whatever. I don't even know. Put it in the bank. It's not as important as our air, our water, being able to have a house that doesn't sound like the garbage disposal is on at all times. 100%. That's what's happening in the towns where these data centers are. So please consider what the payoff is. If the money is what keeps on going in people's minds, think about what you're going to do with the money when you don't have the place to live, to raise your children, and you can't sell your house because it doesn't have any value anymore. So where do you go? Please consider these things when you're thinking about what is important in this community. And I live in Phoenix. I don't even live in this area, but I know from the research that I've done on data centers that I'm going to be affected in Phoenix, and everybody within 30 miles of here is going to be affected. So please consider how important it is when the money is not going to fix anything that is going to cause.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, last chance, citizens' comments, I'm closing them. Now, I know it's not right on the agenda, but I know there's a bunch of people in this room that are like, it just quit pouring, so what's the board gonna do? So I'm gonna sit here and ask the board, what is our path forward? Because obviously there are people who want answers to. So I'll just ask each person individually. I'll start with Mr. Morrissey. He might have a couple more meetings in him between now and April 30th.
So you were here earlier. My line of questioning for our attorney should be pretty self-explanatory. I want to know how we can get ahead of this. That's why I asked you the questions I asked. So you know where I stand. There are consequences, I know, if I were to put a motion out there and it were not to pass tonight. There are consequences. So I guess it falls on everybody else because personally, I agree, get ahead of it. And as far as tax revenue goes, I have always been of the opinion that it takes a certain amount of money to run a town. I do not need more money than it takes to run a town. It takes a certain amount of money. So tax revenue never really was a thing for me. If I can balance a budget with what we currently have, I'm fine. So if there's anyone out there thinking that, oh, the tax revenue is the benefit, it's not the benefit in my mind. We have been running this town just fine without that tax revenue. So I'm 1 of 4 tonight, 1 of 5 until the imminent end. But that is my opinion, and that is where I stand right now. If we can put something together, I am ready to vote. I just don't want to jeopardize a future motion.
Okay. Mr. Mangan.
Well, I guess my question would be to the attorney first. What does that look like to actually write something like that up, to be able to vote on it as quickly as tonight?
It's not going to be done tonight. What you would do is you'd make a motion to draft the moratorium. We would draft it as quickly as we can, and then we would submit it to the zoning board, and then to you, and then you would have a public hearing for the law, the moratorium. You have the public hearing, then you vote on it. So I don't, on the top of my head, I think it's 10 days of public notice. So that's the fastest you could probably get it done. But don't quote me. I can provide you that information. You could share it with your constituents tomorrow. But I do not have that number in my head. But it's at least 10 days from here to moratorium.
And we would have to wait for the referrals of county planning. And I know you refer to the zoning board. The town planning board would be the one to entertain the draft resolution of the moratorium.
Then a public hearing, then a vote.
Could I follow up with that, though? A question that I did ask earlier. If we were to pass a motion tonight to begin the process, that's when the clock ticks, though. Is that correct?
It's not conclusive, but it would be persuasive.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's not complete, but it's a game of factors and time.
Okay.
So they'll make their factors, we'll make our factors in time, and say that it was our desire to get a moratorium in during this period of time, and we're being raced to the finish line on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, and just, sorry for all the questions. So if we were to vote on drafting a moratorium, doesn't necessarily mean we have a moratorium in place.
Nope.
Then there would have to be a public hearing where, and I get that there's a lot of support against the data center here tonight, and I appreciate that. But if there were, for some reason, support against a moratorium, they would also have the same opportunity before this moratorium came in place?
Exactly. Some town boards will do, depending on how many people are in support, I don't know if there will be any, but depending on how many people are in support, they'll have an opportunity to sign up typically before the public hearing, because if you think there's going to be a lot of people speaking, it creates orderliness. And then you have one side go first, the other side go second to discuss what the moratorium says. If there's particular language they don't like in it, and then the vote is made.
Gotcha. Okay. That's all I have. Yeah. Are you asking for my opinion currently?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
If two people said no, it would be dead in the water. That's where I'm looking for, because the attorney I would assume we draft a resolution saying that the town board is going to make a motion to draft a resolution regarding a moratorium. And then, not to step on your toes, but then we would put out on the town website, or we would share on social media, I'm sure people will find out. We would hold an emergency town board meeting, which I think we have to give 72 hours notice. We would put that on the website. We probably wouldn't do that at 6:30 at night, folks, because I think we probably know where the path is going. We would, because that motion, that's not a public hearing, that's not a comment, that is 5 board members come in, hold a vote, and then we send these things off to the appropriate boards for review. So we would probably hold that meeting at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and then that process would start. And then we would look at the window for a public hearing. We can, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we can hold the public hearing, but we would be required to get county planning and our planning board referrals back before we voted on it, I believe. Is how we've always followed that process.
Yes, that sounds right. I can't say with complete confidence in this particular case, but to err on the side of caution, that is the proper way to do it. There may be another way, but that is.
Now, I can also talk to the planning board chairman tomorrow, once we have a better window of a time frame where the planning board could hold an emergency meeting regarding the process of a moratorium, for them to give us a referral back in a timely fashion to fit a window of not taking weeks. So I just want to, there is a process. It's, it goes to county planning, it goes to our town planning. That's not a delay, that is the legal process. And if we don't follow the legal process, we're out the window. The resolution has to be crafted correctly. So, sorry. But, Ed.
All right. So, I'm new on the board, and I think you probably noticed my wife mentioning me earlier, and she mentioned the fact that before I ran for office, before I got elected, we actually involved in a lawsuit against the town. And the reason for that was we feel the town really let us down on some zoning and ordinance issues that were not handled appropriately. So I am extremely sympathetic to what everyone is saying. And part of the decision to run for the board was, I can complain about things or I can try to make a difference. And this is me trying to make a difference. That's why I ran, that's why I'm here. So I would fully support to start the moratorium process.
Sorry, trying to break down a draft resolution for us to start. No, this is what I wrote up. Motion made by Blank, seconded by Blank, to authorize the town attorney to craft a moratorium regarding data centers. Because this isn't the, oh my God, this is getting thrown out because Supervisor Road whipped up a resolution. This is to give us the authority to let the town attorney work on research how moratoriums on data centers are crafted, to review them, to get this process started. And then when the town attorney has something back to us, then we can determine when we can have the special meeting. In the meantime, once we get that work on it, I will talk to the planning board chairman. Normally they meet the second Thursday of the month, which with May coming up would be May 14th. Obviously that's a month out. So I can first, this isn't me, this is depending on where 5 people are and they might not be in town. So I'll ask the planning board chairman and the clerk to try to get the planning board together to hold that emergency meeting to look over the moratorium. And that could also be an emergency meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but that would be published, it would have the same notices. So there's a requirement in that regard. But we will work on this as fast as humanly possible, as the law regards. So,
One more question.
Go ahead.
So the process after the public hearing from both sides, does that then come back to the board to enact a moratorium? Do we re-vote as the five of us to say, okay, we agree, let's put the moratorium in?
Yes. That resolution after that public hearing would be to enact the moratorium. Is that resolution, we'll add that on as motion?
Yeah, you can just read that in and then, okay, all set to go.
Very good.
Thank
you. As for me, as I've said before, I'm not in favor or against it. You can take that for what you feel it's worth. But I am all in support of the board on following this process. So I am in agreement to start this process for a moratorium. And I thank you.
I don't want to set any expectations from anybody, but I do support, I appreciate that you guys came out here. It takes a lot for me to make a decision like this, so the fact that we're actually going to make the decision later on, I respect you guys, and I'm voting to start it now because you guys came out and showed, but the bigger test is when both sides get to come, and I definitely want a chance to hear everybody.
We'll take the first step.
Thank you all, everyone. We'll get a little link up on, data center on the ribbon, and as we move forward, we'll get that there, and feel free to send an email, hey, where are you at? Okay? So,
Are you making the motion now?
we'll make the motion at the end of the agenda when we can get there, but it'll be item F. And in that process, we will play that process through as quickly as possible. No one has to stay. We're not going to bait and switch you and vote no. If you want to leave, you're more than welcome to. And to reiterate Mr. Moore's point, I don't think we've had a board member that has looked at a town budget based on tax revenue. We've always determined what the budget is based on the town's needs.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So, town board comments. Anybody got anything left, or are we?
I have one.
Okay.
The county housing and transportation.
Can we get people quiet here? In the mic.
Thank you for coming, everyone. The County Housing and Transportation Committee is having a local meeting that I talked about last week at the Baldwinsville Public Library on April 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. The public's invited, and it's your chance to give the county feedback on housing and transportation issues in the area.
Thank you. Pete, I think you said
this.
Thanks for coming, thanks for watching. Might as well end with that.
And thank you, Pete, for years of service.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I just have a couple of things. First, obviously, is to thank Pete, because, when I first came to one of my meetings, I met Pete, and he was one of the reasons why I wanted to run. I'm sad that it only was 3 months on the board with you, but I'm happy for you in your future, for sure. The second thing is, I honestly had no idea that there was going to be so many people here today to talk about the data center, but I appreciate that everybody came out and took the time out on their night for or against. When I ran for this position, I always said, no matter my personal opinion on anything, I was going to put the community first when I make decisions up here, and that stands true. That stands true no matter what, and I hope you guys trust that that's what's going to happen.
Thank you. Supervisors' comments. A couple. One is thank you, Mr. Moore, for all of your years. I always Mr. Moore. It's that's what I hear when we're in the Memorial Day parade. Pete wins the handshake title every year because he's got 500 kids out there from Reynolds that he's taught, and it's amazing that he can almost remember every person's name, their parents' name. It is really impressive, and the impact that Pete has made on not only the students that have come through Reynolds, which was a great political ploy because Lysander kids go to Reynolds. So what a genius move on the political end of being able to talk to parents and voters. But I'm joking. It is to see children and to see adults, because you've been teaching for quite a few years, I won't get into the amount, but to see adults that will go up and say hello to Pete and, to have him on the town board and to have worked with him for as many years as I did and to sit on that side of the microphone and, talk about what I thought the town board should be doing. We appreciate all your service and what I wanted to do, because we do have one counselor not here, and we'll probably have another meeting where Mr. Moore will be involved, so he's not getting out of it scot-free. I have a letter of recognition that I'm going to read that we will all sign, and we will give it to you and take a picture. So, the Town of Lysander letter of recognition. Peter Moore has served the residents of the Town of Lysander as town councilor for over 10 years. And whereas during his tenure, Peter Moore participated in the legislative functions of the town, including attending town board meetings and taking part in deliberations on matters before the board. And whereas the town values the contributions of those who serve in elected office and participate in the governance process. And whereas Peter Moore has dedicated his time and his service to not only the town of Lysander, but specifically the Baldwinsville Central School District, Baldwinsville Kiwanis, and various other community organizations. And whereas service as a town councilor requires commitment of time and attention to the responsibilities of municipal government. Now therefore, the Town of Lysander Town Board hereby recognizes Peter Moore for his years of service as town councilor and acknowledges his participation in the legislative affairs of the town. Be it further recognized that the Town of Lysander extends best wishes to Peter Moore and his future endeavors. Thank you. The other thing, Ed hit on the Housing and Transportation Citizens Advisory Board at the Public Library. We also are still taking comments for the LWRP, the local waterfront revitalization plan. Feel free to put your comments in. If you don't know where the website is, shoot me an email. I can have the comments added to our general plan. We are, like I said at the last meeting, like step 2 of 10. So this is the time to get involved. If you're a stakeholder, you want to be involved in that process at step 7, feel free to reach out. We can get you on the list. Other than that, we're still looking for people to assist us with code updates, club committee. Reach out to me. I will get with the planning board chairman. Normally we get a good dichotomy of town government and outside people, residents, business owners, attorneys. We like to have a good cross-section of the town to update that plan and look at it objectively and see what we want to plan for the next few years, because the club is the Bible that first the planning board looks at, and then when they review the codes, it follows that process. So as we know, Mr. Moore is going to be leaving us. We will discuss the open board seat at our regular meeting on May 7th at the work session on what the possible path forward. That is it on my end. I will explain, we will have an executive session at the end of the meeting. There will be no motions after it, so you don't have to stick around, but publicly we have to come out, see if anybody's here to adjourn the executive session. It's personnel matters relating to the employment history of a particular employee that could lead to suspension or termination or reprimand, discipline. So that's what the executive session will be. That is all I have. Department head reports. Town attorney.
No reports from Peter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service. Appreciate your help and everything. Town of Lysander is going to have a drop-off for Earth Day. It's Friday 8 to 12 at the town barn, and Saturday 8 to 12. If anybody, organizations, town barn.
This
No,
week?
28th.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the date.
They're the 24th to 25th. So next week. Next week.
Okay.
So it's 8 to 12 both days. If any organizations or people who just want to do pick up or whatever, you can just drop it off at the town barn. And we're starting summer hours beginning Monday the 20th, Monday through Thursday, 6 to 4.
Both of those things are on the website, Highlight Carl.
Thank you.
That's about it. Nice. Town engineer.
Pete, thanks. It's been a real pleasure. Truly enjoyed my time with you. I just wanted to comment, a follow-up with Carl. So as of right now, weather permitting, we're looking to start our mill and fill paving projects beginning of May. Just be on the lookout. We'll get notices on the town website and on the Radisson Reflections about what roads are being done when, but that's coming up in the very, very near future.
Good point.
Thank you. Is there anything else or not? Town clerk.
Oh, Pete, I've known you for such a long time. You were always so nice to me, and I really appreciated. You were always respectful. We had nice conversations. We bounced ideas off of each other, and you were always so even-keeled on the board. People might notice. Like, he was always just chill, you know, and things would get heated and he'd be like, okay, we need to talk about this, you know, like he was just always just very chill, I guess is how I can.
You might be dealing with 10-year-olds.
I was going to say, you're going to have 30 10-year-olds at any time.
But just your demeanor and how nice you were to me and to people, like that's appreciated, and it's appreciated by the community too, and I'll miss working with you. But you'll still come in for your hunting license, right?
I will.
Okay. You won't buy it online. You'll come in.
I will
Okay.
buy it personally like I always do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the regular agenda items. Motion A. Can I get a motion? Scroll down so public can see this. Motion A. Can I get a motion to apply Collington Point East incentive zoning funds to the Hayes Road Sewer Extension site? These funds were collected to assist with installing sewers on the peninsula.
I'll make a motion. I'll move it. Or second it.
Okay. Discussion. As I stated, these funds were paid into for incentive zoning for sewering the peninsula. The last meeting we had talked about using money from the current budget of traffic control devices, but the engineer pointed out we do have funds available in the incentive zoning funding specifically for this purpose. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All yes, motion carried. Motion B, may I motion to authorize town supervisor to sign the CHA extra work authorization in the amount of $19,800 to add Hayes Road in the Red Rock neighborhood into the Cold Springs Sewer District Extension preliminary design report. Fees for the updated study will be paid out of the incentive zoning capital account that was funded through the Collington Point East Copper River project. Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Mangan. Discussion. Obviously, we're moving forward with the Hayes Road project to try to apply for a grant for that and the West Jenny sewer system. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Oh yes, motion carried. Motion C, we're going to table. I was a little busy this week with the moratorium process and researching that to not get the budget transfers on the website. Motion D. Can I get a motion to regretfully accept the resignation of Peter Moore as town councilor effective April 30th, 2026?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. So what do we want to move that date to?
2028.
Yeah. Definitely at least 20. So, thank you again. It's been a pleasure working with you. You've always been thoughtful and treated the citizens on both sides as board members and the public with respect and integrity. It's been a valuable work. It's been valuable to me working. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
All in favor? Aye. I want to say no, but I will vote yes.
I will abstain.
He's benefiting is what he's feeling, so he's going to abstain.
Wait, if you abstain, then Jeff's not here, isn't that?
The three of you.
We got three. Yeah, didn't show up, he was driving to get here. Motion E. Can I get a motion to declare the following trucks surplus from the highway department? I'm not gonna list each one, but truck 9, truck 11, truck 8, truck 24.
I'll make the motion.
Discussion. The highway superintendent, these are all trucks we plan on auctioning. We either have replacement vehicles already in.
Or in the process.
In the process. These vehicles all cost us more money than it would be worth to repair or fix. So that's why they call the process. They're gonna be auctioned off. Given, the ages of them, you know what we're expecting to get in revenue, which is pretty much scrap.
Never know.
We'll see.
You never know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yes, motion carried. Motion F. Can I get a motion to authorize the town attorney to craft a moratorium regarding data centers? Second. Discussion. I think we have discussed this as much as possible. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yes, motion carried. As I had said previously, we will start that process with the attorney. I will talk to the planning board chairman, and we will try to align everything to move this through as quickly as possible, as legally possible. But there are public hearing notices, guidelines that we have to follow. So it'll be up on the website. We'll start a little data center ribbon update, and we'll put information up there as it comes across.
Kevin, can I just read it, just to, okay. Motion to authorize the town attorney to craft a moratorium regarding data centers.
Yeah, to craft a moratorium, yeah, it's not a law.
That's it. To authorize the town attorney to craft a moratorium
No,
regarding.
the moratorium is a local law.
But we have to make
But they're gonna
We have to make the draft.
They're not,
At the emergency meeting,
they'll do the moratorium.
we'll have the motion to approve the local law of the moratorium. So that'll be a totally
It's not
different.
even to approve it, it's to refer it to.
No, I'm
the-
sorry,
To refer it to the planning board, the county planning board, and the
Yes.
zoning board.
I'm sorry, to refer to the.
We should put all that in there.
And this one? No, this one?
The next step.
Yes, Dave, for those who don't know, Mr. Herkla is normally our regular attorney.
He's not
here tonight. He had said, whatever the board decides, we will make sure the resolution is correct. Just let me know in the morning, and we will start that
So for now,
process.
this is the wording for tonight.
Yeah,
Just
this is just getting us to that next
Make
meeting.
sure that was.
Yep.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I want to formalize it for the public. We really don't need this. We could call an emergency meeting, but I want people to be able to read something where they see we're moving forward. Okay?
Potentially.
Right. Well, at least moving forward down that.
The next step, yeah, absolutely.
We've started the clock.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And now, at 8:08, can I get a motion to go into executive session regarding the employment history of a particular employee? Second, all in favor? Aye. Here in the executive session, as I said, there will be no resolutions after. Have a good night.